It is often said that Americans travel less than Europeans, and well, that is true, but why is it true? I have thought about this, conducted a little bit of research, I must admit not as much as I would like, but I think from my position in American society, I am semi-qualified to answer this question. Now, there are people who are more qualified and more skilled and just are better suited to answer this question, but I think my position, my socio-economic position in American society does lend it to making it me semi-qualified. Now, I won't say I'm totally qualified as I admitted earlier, but I think I have enough reason and personal experience to attempt an answer and to begin a hopefully an intelligent discussion on it. That's why this video is an off-topic video, not a Ryzen video or a politics in the world video. So why is it? Well, there's a lot of factors in. First of all, not every American can afford to travel abroad. It is a fact. The middle class in America is not as strong as it used to be. And in fact, that means, and it's not so much that more of them are becoming the upper class, it's the sad fact that more of them are slipping down into the lower class. And in America, it is hard to change your socioeconomic status. It's easier to go down than it is to go back up. And when you start factoring in race, it's even harder. I am in the my race is white, so I have the bias that American society has to the right has to the socially constructed concept of the white race will benefit me, even though it shouldn't benefit me. It should be equal. Unfortunately, though, African Americans, Hispanic Americans, and any other major ethnic or minor ethnic group in America will have even harder time changing their socioeconomic status to allow them to travel abroad. Because traveling abroad from America is not the most affordable. First of all, we're a big country, so that does play into it's much easier to get our car and drive into the neighboring U.S. state rather than to get in a car, drive up to the airport. That's if you would choose to drive up to the airport. Then you have to pay to park your car somewhere, or you just pay money for public transit, which is not the best in America. Granted, it's typically cheaper, semi-cheap, but it's not the greatest quality. But you have to pay for that. Then you got airline tickets, which which sometimes can be cheap, but but it's not always. And for like transatlantic flights, it is gonna be more expensive than domestic flights. And most people, and there's a bunch of other stuff there, but also it's more the work aspect of it. American jobs that the bulk of Americans have that keep Americans from traveling. If you, because unlike most European countries, we don't get guaranteed months-long vacations every year. 2 weeks is like, from my experience, from what my family have, 2 weeks was the longest was the amount of vacation time my father had every year. Just 2 weeks. That's not a lot. If you want to go abroad, not really a lot. And you sometimes need to save those days for other things. Because sure, we do have sick days and sick hours, but they can go up quickly. And since we have very expensive medical costs in America, that sucks up a lot of our income that we do get from our jobs. Now, I myself am going to go into teaching, which means I'll have essentially a 2 month vacation every year. But I'm probably going to be spending that summertime working a part-time summer job. Because, well, just to support any kind of family in America, yeah, it's really only if you work in the kind of a middle class or lower class job, lower middle class, lower middle class job, that kind of, even middle class job. If you want to travel, you have to really do it before, and if you can afford it, you have to do it before you start supporting a family. And once you start doing that, unless you have to save or have a very good source of income, and that's not feasible for every American. But that's all the socioeconomic. And of course, granted, Americans have a lot less money taken out for taxes, but we save most of those in the lower economic brackets of America, which is the majority of Americans. Not everyone's a super rich person like our president. I do have some poor feelings toward Donald Trump. I've been giving him a chance, and well, he's ruined that chance I'm giving him, to say the least. My initial impressions of him seem to be turning out correct. But this is not a political discussion. I just saw Donald Trump out there as an example of a super rich American who can afford to travel abroad. And there's a lot of non-famous Americans who are super rich that can also travel abroad, but it's not the majority of them. It's certainly not. It's only really the upper part. Not the 1%, maybe not even the 10%, more like the 25% maybe, or 30%. But still, that's maybe a sizable portion, but it's still not the majority. And it probably will never be in America in my lifetime, because we got a bunch of other problems that we kind of need to solve before we can start traveling abroad super easily. But to more get back on reasons why Americans don't travel abroad, besides the fact that most of us really can't afford the time. It's more the time we can't afford, but also all the other expensive. Healthcare in America is super expensive. Funding for healthcare, what little of our small taxes, what little goes to healthcare, normally goes to healthcare for Medicaid and Medicare, for helping those who seriously can't help themselves, who seriously have no actual funds. The retired and those with no job, those who need help paying off medical bills. And then also like children, the CHIP program is also out there, and then we have a huge defensive budget which sucks up a good portion of our taxes, what little those taxes are. That's why I think the rich need to start paying maybe a bit more, because they can afford it. If you earn $500,000 a year, $500,000, paying $10,000 in taxes is not going to hurt you. Someone who makes $40,000 a year or $50,000 a year, $10,000 will greatly hurt them. Granted, under our current tax system, I actually don't know how it works. I'm only going to be starting to pay taxes soon. But under our current tax system, it's not like a flat thing per head kind of thing. But only a few people could afford like multi-thousand-dollar taxes. Because if that much taxes is taken out of no, let's get back on track. And yeah, medical costs are expensive in America. It's simple. It's a fact, and we save money for medical expenses and for retirement. That's where most Americans travel. But you know where most Americans travel? It's not abroad. It's domestically. You got those who travel very domestically. You know, those who maybe stay in the same U.S. state, but that's not too common. But like a trip, if you live in Chicago, a long trip is a week-long vacation to California or Florida or Texas from Chicago. That's a long trip, or to any really other state. That's a long trip for an American. A day trip is staying in your state, maybe going across. Because some states in the U.S. are the size of countries over in Europe. So that just to give you the scale. And if we were to experience a different culture in America, it's not like we just get on the train in Berlin to go to Paris and boom, a different culture. We can't do that. Sure, we could get on a train in Chicago and I know we can go to San Antonio in California. I've looked up that route because I was curious. And there should be also a route to New York, but I don't know it. we don't use public transportation like that in America. If we were to go somewhere, we pretty much have to drive or fly. And flying can be expensive, but so can driving at times because we have a huge car culture in America. That's probably the main reason why public transportation between cities is so sparse. I live in one of the largest cities in Joliet, in the top 10. But we're still nowhere near the size of the top 10, the number 10 position for the entirety of the U.S. But just in the state of Illinois, which has some budget problems itself, but just this one small town, we only have a few bus lines. And there's one bus line that goes like around downtown, then one that goes out to the mall, and then there's one that basically they take the two major U.S. highways in the state, in our area, and that's where the bus routes are, except for the one that's downtown. And then there's one that goes east to essentially going west. But that's like it. We don't have the infrastructure for public transportation. And literally for mass transit like trains, we have rules at my city is at the end of the line for going to Chicago. There's a couple of them, I won't tell you which one. One, of course. Privacy, if you can understand that, but we're at the end of the line. If we want to go to Chicago, that's really no problem. We just get on the metro. But if we want to go to New York, what we most likely would have to do if we didn't want to drive is essentially, and depending on where you live, it could be a short walk or a long walk to the bus stop. Then you take that downtown to the station. You get on either Metro or Amtrak. You go all the way up to either Midway or O'Hare, and you get on a plane to go to New York. That's essentially how an American would go to New York without driving. And that's the closest thing we can say to taking public transportation. And it's not much. We don't have public transportation in America to facilitate that kind of travel. But we have an extensive car culture. And that really does affect America a whole lot. You just gotta look at the history of Route 66 to see that. Airplanes have, yes, taken more dominance for travel for Americans in recent years. But still, car trips are still a very common thing. Not as common as they used to be, but they're still never as common. They may not be quite the same as back in the heyday of Route 66, but they still exist. You leave early in the morning, you drive to your destination, you spend some time there. You may stop on a few sites on the way down. That's essentially a car trip in America. And you go from and sometimes you may stay in your own state, sometimes you may go to another state. But for some Europeans, the trip we just took within our country, with probably not leaving any of the states that border our own state. We have just taken a trip equivalent of a European going abroad just by going between France and Germany or Spain and France. Just to kind of show you what our common trips are, probably most similar to some European common trips. It's just that we're generally bigger than most of those countries. Granted, that's not always the case. You got the New England states, which are pretty small. And then you got the massive Texas and the supermassive, you know which state it is, it's Alaska. But yeah, really, I don't know which country has the most American tourists, but I think it's English speaking, because not every American knows a second language. And most of them who do will know Spanish, which means, if any place, they're going to Mexico or Spain. Sometimes they're seeing relatives, sometimes they're actually sightseeing. But Americans do travel abroad, just not as this. And besides, no, there's a lot of benefits of traveling abroad, getting to experience different cultures and cuisines. And that's true. But in America, we can actually do that somewhat domestically. You live in the Midwest, okay, you have a pretty, I would say, standard American diet. So you want something different, some different food? Well, you can actually get that probably within your own state, your own town. But if you want to experience more than just food, very easy. You go down to New Orleans and you have a totally different culture, which you gotta know a whole lot of food culture. That's probably one of the most European towns, cities we have in America. The old influence of the French from when France when France possessed New Orleans. The architecture shows a lot of that stuff. The language has leaked into the Cajun Creole language. Just and that area has a totally different culture from the surrounding South. New Orleans is part of the South, part of the Deep South, yet is very different than the Deep South. And then there's just kind of the South in general, very different cultures. And then you want another type of culture? Go to the New England. You get a totally different culture there. That's probably a bit more representative of English and British culture, but still distinctly American. You want to try something? You want to go to culture with lots of I'll say California. It always had California has like that reputation of being a far out type of place, kind of a crazy experimental in culture. Just look at the pizza if you want that example. Yeah, since I'm living in the Chicagoland area, we find Californian style pizza to be different, weird, that kind of thing. But yeah, you can just look at there are about three main types of pizza in America. New York style, which has big slices that you fold in half to eat. I don't understand that personally, but it does make sense. That's a bit more like the traditional thin crust. Then you got Chicago style, which is kind of like two different styles. There's the thin crust style, but I know Chicago's famous for its deep dish pizzas, which has it's the cheese and then the sauce on top of the cheese. Thick crust. It's like that's what Chicago's famous for. Then there's like, oh, I forgot about St. Louis style of pizza, which is cracker thin crust and a very specific type of cheese that's made in St. Louis. It's like most people don't realize there are things like that in America. And then there's Californian style pizza and Hawaiian style pizza and that. But also you can look at barbecue. While barbecue is not distinctly American, America does have varying styles of barbecue. So just by going with our own country, we can now get different food cuisines, but different cultures and different accents. For some people who live in the Midwest, going to the South, they can barely understand the Southern accent, and yet we both speak English and sometimes can understand each other. Compare the North and South. There's still a divide, though, believe it or not, in America, and we still don't quite get along well and get each other. Something we're still working on. A lot of deep wounds in America. A lot of deep wounds. That's probably most I'm going to say about that subject. But yeah, America, we can experience totally different cultures and how are just different landscapes. You live in the UK, you can, well, Brexit may be changing this, but before Brexit, you live in the UK and you want to see the Swiss Alps, the mountains, some nice European Alps, the mountains, no problem. In America, you want to see mountains, no need for a passport, you just head right on over to the Rockies or the Smokies. If you want a bit more mild, you can go to the Ozark Mountains. Simple. And it's kind of similar to the Schengen zone in Europe, where you don't need passports. But even if you did need passport, even that didn't exist in Europe, I bet more Europeans would have passports because they could travel. Because to experience much more stuff, they have to travel abroad. America, no. Mountains, no problem. We got them in our country. Deserts, no problem. Okay, Europe doesn't have any deserts either, but we actually do have deserts in America. You want to go to a Caribbean island? We have one, Puerto Rico, which should be a state. I did that as a previous video. I may be remaking it in the future if necessary. Also, so Puerto Ricans, I never actually said this when the hurricane struck your island, but I hope you guys get better and are able to rebuild successfully, and hopefully you're better and stronger for it. I wish I had said that earlier, but unfortunately I never got around to it, but I am saying it now. I apologize for my lateness. And I hope I didn't stir up any old wounds and emotions that you were hoping to get past. But, again, Caribbean islands. And also, if you want to go to Polynesian islands, no problem. We have a Hawaii, which is a state. You want some cold tundra? Alaska. You want some white water rapids? No problem. You want to go visit some stereotypical backcountry people? We have them. Want to see some stuck-up city folk? We got them. Want to see the whole range? We have the whole range. You want to go visit some swamps? No problem. Some nice beaches? No problem. We have some very nice ones in America, in fact. You want to eat cuisine that you're not used to? No problem. We really do have a lot in America. Partly because we're such a big and diverse country. Literally. You can easily draw lines in America separating regions on factors. You can do cuisine, you can do language, or more specific dialects and accents. That's probably the more accurate descriptor. But also, you can even do things like baseball teams, football teams. Literally. No. You live in Chicago, you better be a Bears fan, apparently. And you can't be a Packers fan at all. I don't understand it. I really actually don't care. But just Chicago alone, you got the Sox and the Cubs. And if you live in the wrong area, not in the wrong area, you live in the Cubs area, you can't be a Sox fan. You live in the Sox area, you can't be a Cubs fan. You live in the borderland regions of Chicagoland, and they give you a bit more slack. But still, the rivalry for that is like unbelievable, and that's just within a small city in the U.S. And then of course you get the World Series, and like Chicago people, Cubs, Sox, they root for their preferred team, but they're like, hey, at least it's Chicago. Don't quite understand it myself. I'm not a big sports fan, but it's present. And there's probably a bunch of other cultural factors that help distinct. Really, traveling between different states is so amazing. Illinois is generally considered a pretty boring state by most Illinoisans. And I kind of agree. Really, we don't have much interesting stuff. In fact, probably in northern Illinois, the most interesting thing is Starved Rock State Park. Probably one of the best state parks in the state of Illinois. The only one with an accurate map, by the way. And by accurate, I also mean readable, detailed, and that. Probably because it's one of the most popular. But there's not too much in northern Illinois. Most northeastern Illinois tends to be better. It's right along the Mississippi River. That's probably why that area is pretty good. And it's right by Iowa, which, according to my history of world civilization professor, it's the best state in the Union. He has a thing for he likes Iowa. But anyhow, that's kind of off topic in this off topic video. But Illinois, southern Illinois, okay, it's pretty good. But again, no good state parks. It's not very beautiful looking. You go to Indiana, every state park has a map as good, if not better, than Starved Rock State Park in Illinois. They got some nice, decent beaches and all that, and some nice state parks. Illinois has its nice stuff too, but it seems like Indiana does a better job at it. But also, then you head down to Kentucky and you get a totally different atmosphere. About half my family comes from Kentucky, so I've been there a fair amount. And really, it's totally different than Illinois. Besides the southern accent, or southern drawl, there's mountains, there's the southern hospitality aspect that's thrown in there. There's really a lot thrown in there, and that's just 3 states that all border each other, and you got totally different. Illinois and Indiana might be more related, more similar, but Kentucky is totally different from them. Really, it is totally different. You got rolling hills, the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains, and that's just a few things. Then you go down, like Tennessee and Kentucky, like have a similar thing, like Illinois and Indiana, very similar, but some differences. But then kind of the same Appalachian foothill stuff, and Tennessee has some nice stuff around the Great Smoky Mountains. Then another Tennessee though doesn't border Illinois, but another state that borders Illinois, Missouri, totally different than Illinois, and it's actually pretty different than Kentucky. Lots of the Ozark Mountains there, also with Arkansas, are similar to the Appalachian Mountains in Tennessee and Kentucky, but still a very different culture. It's kind of interesting. And then there's Iowa to the northeast of Illinois. Again, lots of farmland as well, but the river area, the area right along the Mississippi River is actually a pretty nice area for interestingness. Something you don't get in the middle of Illinois, and especially northern Illinois. Western Illinois tends to be a bit better. And northeastern Illinois is Chicago. And well, Chicago is Chicago. That's like all we have in Illinois for big draws. And then we have Wisconsin to the north of us in Illinois. And again, it's just a totally different state. It's I don't know. It just Illinois. Granted, those who live in those states see probably their faults a bit more than those who only travel. But that's something neat about America. Our state mentality, maybe it's not as strong as it used to be, is still so present and influences us that we go to another state and generally we will see a different culture. We will feel like we have traveled and seen something new. We can do that by going abroad as well in America, but a lot of Americans are like, why bother? I have less time, so I might as well just go to the state next door to me to get a new experience. Over in Europe, they can actually go abroad super easily to experience. And that's something I think some people do forget. Now, I've talked extensively about Europe in comparing America, but there's the other countries in the world as well. We got Asia, Africa, and South America, and the other countries of North America. They all have different things too. Like, I know Americans do travel to Mexico and Canada, probably because they're right on our borders. But also America also gets a lot of tourists ourselves. We get Chinese tourists. We get South Korean tourists. No North Korean tourists, though. I wonder why. Man, that's a complicated matter. Which I'm not going to talk about here. We get Japanese tourists. We get tourists from India. We get tourists probably from Africa. Maybe not Africa as much because they're still developing. They're still creating the infrastructure, but I'm sure we get some from there. We get South American tourists as well. We get them, and we send them at the same time. It's the thing that all countries do, really. But Americans seem to do a lot more internal traveling. I don't know too much about other countries, but I have been like Canada, Mexico, Brazil, and Russia are also higher internal tourist and travel than like Germany, Luxembourg. That's a very small state. Liechtenstein's super small. You travel, you leave Liechtenstein, it's smaller than the smallest U.S. state. It's small, bigger than the Vatican and San Mariano. I hope I pronounced that right. But it's small. For them, it's like living in one county of a single U.S. state. Maybe that's not the best exaggeration, but very easy for them to travel abroad when they want to travel. I think bigger states will probably see more internal traveling, and America being either the third or fourth largest, depending on how you count it. There's debate, do you count just the land, or do you count the land plus the exclusive economic zone? That's really the thing. If you count land and exclusive economic zone, America's the third. But if you exclude that, then China's third and America's fourth. But still, America's in the top 5 largest. I think the larger countries will see more internal traveling. I would like someone to confirm that for me. But yeah, so there are kind of a generic, large overview of why I think Americans travel less than others, especially when compared to Europeans. But let me know in the comment section, why do you think Americans travel less than others? And do you agree with my conclusion that our that besides our socio-economic factors among the majority of Americans, but that the size of our country also contributes to it as well? Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and feel free to subscribe to this channel for future content. And as always, have a good day, a good night, wherever you are. Have a good one.